The nightless city stood bathed in the glow of red lanterns, its towering walls a silent testament to the Wen clan's dominion over the cultivation world. Once a place of grandeur and excess, it had now become the seat of absolute power, where whispers of rebellion were crushed before they could take root. At the heart of this empire, Wen Ruhan sat on his throne of black stone, his gaze heavy as he listened to the reports from his trusted subordinates. His face, carved with age and cruelty, was unreadable, but the air in the grand hall was thick with tension. Before him knelt Wen Shu and Wen Chao, his two sons, both adorned in red robes embroidered with golden flames. Behind them stood Wen Qing, her sharp eyes lowered but her mind keen, and Wen Juliu, the silent executioner whose presence alone sent a shiver through the guards lining the hall. A map lay stretched across the floor, weighted down by iron ornaments shaped like talons. "The child is alive," Wen Ruhan said at last, his voice a deep, rumbling certainty. "We failed to eliminate him all those years ago." Silence followed, the weight of his words sinking into the grand hall. "Are we certain, Father?" Wen Shu asked cautiously. "We scoured the remnants of the Yunmeng Wei clan. None survived." Wen Ruhan's fingers curled against the armrest of his throne. "And yet, there are whispers of a shadow moving through the ruins of Gusu's cloud recesses. One who was supposed to have perished along with his sect." His crimson robes shifted as he leaned forward. "Wei Ying." Wen Qing's fingers twitched. She kept her face impassive, but her heart pounded. "Are we certain that he is the one? There have been so many speculations over the years, and I have been wondering lately if maybe the child was sent to a different clan." She was not sure if her uncle would even listen to her words, but Wen Qing had to try. She knew, from the day he begged her to help him and his brother, that he was different. No one would have even considered what he had done without a second thought. "I have also considered that, but the Sanrins would have only trusted the Wei clan, and when he went to the Zhangs, there was only Fengmian's children," Wen Ruhan responded. Wen Qing had never known that her uncle had been keeping such a close eye on the clans, so she tried one more idea. In for a pound, she thought. Didn't he go to the Jiangs after his 6th summer? Where was he all that time? How did he survive? She looked up at Wen Ruhan. "If it were my child, I would hide him where no one will likely look for him. I would have kept him right here in the clan, while everyone looked for him elsewhere." When Ruhan looked directly at her and admitted, "So would I," Wen Qing took a slow breath and whispered prayer for his safety. If he was the child they sought, then the entire cultivation world was already standing at the edge of a blade. Wen Ruhan could not defeat him when the time came. Wen Chao sneered. "If it is him, then let him be. He's nothing but a rat scurrying through the ruins of a dead sect." Wen Ruhan's gaze sharpened, and the air in the room turned suffocatingly hot. Wen Chao swallowed hard, his bravado shrinking under the weight of his father's displeasure. "If the boy lives, the prophecy still stands," Wen Ruhan said, voice like stone grinding against stone. "Find him, before he realizes what he is." What remains of the fallen sects now operated under the watchful eyes of the Wens, the remnants of the Zhang sect scattered, their former home reduced to a burned-out ruin. The cultivation world moved cautiously, afraid of incurring the wrath of the Wen. But beneath the surface, whispers of resistance still flickered like dying embers. Wei Wuxian kept to the shadows, his movements careful, deliberate. He had become a ghost within the walls of the cloud recesses, navigating the once sacred halls that now felt abandoned. The forgotten library where he had found the jade box had become his refuge, a place where the Wen rarely ventured. His nights were spent studying the inscriptions, feeling a pull he couldn't yet understand. But something was changing. He felt eyes on him, a presence lingering in time. The small, fragile parchment trembled in his hands. "You must never let them know. The blood in your veins will doom you if they ever find out. Hide it well, my son." "Whose son?" his fingers clenched around the paper, as if crushing it would erase the words, would make them untrue. But nothing could erase the name at the bottom, smudged but still legible. When? The tangled thoughts and uneven breaths did nothing to help him reason it out, because it had to be a lie. Zhang Fengmian had raised him. Madame Yu had despised him, yes, but she had never accused him of being anything other than an orphan of the Yunmengwei clan. Zhang Yanli had called him Shidi, had treated him as family. How could he be a Wen? His pulse roared in his ears. This was a lie. It had to be. He squeezed his eyes shut. If the Wen knew, if anyone knew, what would they do to him? A presence stirred in the air, and he froze. Someone was watching him. At first, he thought it was the residual energy of the place, old memories clinging to the walls. But this was different. It was someone. Lan Zhan. Number that was ridiculous. The second Jade of Gusu had no reason to pay attention to him. Not now. Not after everything. Something in his chest tightened at the thought, but there were more pressing matters. Lan Wangji walked the halls of the cloud recesses, his white robes pristine despite the gloom that hung over the sect like a funeral shroud. Though he outwardly obeyed the Wen, he resisted in the ways he could. Small acts of defiance that went unnoticed by his captors, but not by the heavens. On one of his nightly patrols, he paused. A shadow moved within the restricted library. He knew who it was before he even looked. wuxian. Lan Wangji stood in the distance, hidden behind a column, his gaze unwavering. He had seen the way wuxian moved in the darkness, how he hesitated before unfolding the parchment. He could not see the words written on the fragile paper, but he could see the way wuxian's entire body tensed, as if the very air had turned against him. He had been watching wuxian for days now. There had always been something about him, something unspoken. Wangji knew this day would come, and it scared him. Lan Wangji had known since their youth that wuxian was unlike the others. His laughter, his boldness, his defiance, these were things that set him apart. But there was something else, something deeper, something darker that even wuxian himself did not seem to understand. And now, as he stood in the darkened halls, watching the way wuxian trembled under the weight of a truth he had just discovered. The scroll hidden within his own quarters, one he had transcribed and read in secret for years, contained a story long buried. A story of a child who should never have been born, a child hidden to protect him from a fate worse than death, a child whose blood was tied to something ancient and forbidden. The scroll had never named the child, but tonight, Lan Wangji confirmed what he had long suspected, the name, wuxian. Wuxian's hands clenched around the parchment, his knuckles white. He needed air. He needed to get out. It was also time to find a different place to hide out, or he would be found soon. He could almost feel his enemy breathing down his neck. The disguises and the name he has been using will not always work. He stepped out of the abandoned library and into the cold night. The moon hung heavy in the sky, pale and watchful. And then, for a moment, he stilled. Across the courtyard, beneath the soft glow of the lanterns, stood Lan Wangji. The second Jade of Gusu was as pristine as ever, his white robes untouched by the dust and grime that now clung to wuxian's own. His golden eyes, no, silver under the moonlight, were fixed on him, unmoving, unreadable. wuxian could not look away. The look in Lan Wangji's eyes made him want to run in shame and stay all at the same time. Did Lan Wangji know? His heart pounded. Lan Wangji did not move, did not speak. And then, just as suddenly as the moment arrived, it was gone. Lan Wangji turned away and disappeared into the night. wuxian exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he was holding, but his heart lurched again and pounded. It didn't matter. He had bigger problems. He needed to know the truth. In the silence of his quarters, Lan Wangji stared at the old scroll. He had read many times that he knew the words intimately. This had been hidden within his family's records, never spoken of, never acknowledged. A story of an illegitimate child, a child born of darkness and secrecy, a child with a forbidden power tied to something ancient. He was not exactly a Wen, but it was the connection to the darkness brought by Wen Mao that made the child possible, without even the knowledge of his mother. A child who should never have been born. The name had been omitted, but over the years he had secretly searched and Lan Wangji had long suspected. And tonight, watching Wei Wuxian from afar, he knew his suspicions were true. Wei Wuxian had always belonged to the darkness. He was always special, and now the world would try to consume him for it. Elsewhere, Zhang Cheng sat alone. His hands were wrapped around his sword, Sandu, the only thing he had left of his family. He had lost everything. His sect, his parents, his sister, his Wei Wuxian. Wei Wuxian, who should have been here. But Wei Wuxian was gone. He had not died, no. But he had vanished into the night after the fall of Lotus Pier, leaving Zhang Cheng alone to pick up the broken pieces of their legacy. Zhang Cheng had once believed that as long as they survived, they could rebuild. But what did survival mean when there was nothing left of their home? His grip on Sandu tight, Ned. He did not know where Wei Wuxian was, but if he was still alive, then one day they would meet again. And when that day came, there would be no forgiveness. Wei Wuxian sat beneath the ruins of the library, staring at the sky. The moon was watching him, and for the first time in his life, he felt truly lost. He did not belong to the Zhang sect. He could not belong to the Lan clan. He did not belong anywhere. But that would not stop him. He was Wei Wuxian. He would carve his own path, with or without the truth of his past, even if it killed him. He stood up with the few things he could salvage from the library hidden in a bag and walked away.